Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. The U.S. and Iran have reached a peace deal to end fighting and lift the naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. President Donald Trump announced that the deal will be officially signed this Friday in Switzerland. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung, who's on a 10-day Europe trip, attended a special mass for peace and solidarity in Rome and pledged to do all he can to build peace on the Korean peninsula. He said to meet with Pope Leo at the Holy See on Monday. Korea's defense minister says a target date for the transfer of wartime operational control from the United States could be proposed to the leaders of both countries by the end of this year, as the administration seeks to complete it before the president's term ends in 2030. The United States and Iran have announced a complete cessation of hostilities and the lifting of the naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. The newly minted Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding means a permanent truce on all fronts, including Lebanon. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
The deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. Posted on Truth Social Sunday, President Trump's statement declared an end to the 106-day war. It follows the finalization of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding in Tehran, a bilateral framework mediated by Pakistan and Qatar that orders an immediate end to the U.S. naval blockade and a toll-free reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Nearly 14 to 15 hours of lengthy talks took place, during which we presented the Islamic Republic of Iran's final amendments to the text. Naturally, those amendments were accepted, and the text of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding was finalized.
The accord mandates an immediate and permanent cessation of military operations across all fronts, explicitly including active conflict zones in Lebanon. While political authorization is immediate, the physical removal of naval assets and active mine clearance across the Strait of Hormuz are projected to take between 2 weeks and 30 days. President Trump later modified his timeline, stating that the formal opening for oil transit will coincide with the official signing ceremony scheduled for this Friday in Geneva, Switzerland. Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpile and broader nuclear program have been deferred to a secondary 60-day phase of structured negotiations. President Trump framed the deal as an unprecedented victory that prior administrations failed to achieve. Iran's semi-official Mehr news agency reported what it says is a 14-point draft of the deal, which includes a 30-day window to lift the blockade under Iranian arrangements, a $300 billion U.S.-led reconstruction plan, and the release of half of Iran's frozen funds before final talks began. Washington has yet to confirm these points, and Tehran is apparently claiming victory in the war.
The United States was forced to sign a memorandum to end the war with the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Resistance Front.
As for the signing ceremony in Geneva, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is scheduled to lead the American delegation. White House officials indicate that President Trump may also attend the signing ceremony. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And now for more on the ceasefire between the United States and Iran, we're joined today by Professor Kim Jae-chun, Professor of International Relations at the Graduate School of International Studies at Seoul University. Professor Kim, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
So, President Donald Trump has confirmed that the U.S. and Iran have reached a peace deal. Does this mean the crisis is effectively over?
Well, I would have to say no. The crisis is far from over. What we are seeing right now is not a final peace agreement, but more of a preliminary framework, an MOU that sets the stage for further negotiations. The real issues, such as Iran's nuclear program, sanctions relief, and even the security of the Strait of Hormuz, I think these issues are still unresolved, and they are expected to be negotiated over the next 60 to 90 days. And frankly speaking, I think this process could take even longer than 90 days, because these are extremely complicated and politically very sensitive issues. The bigger problem I see is that both countries still harbor deep distrust, if you will, toward each other, and that underlying mistrust doesn't disappear simply because they are going to sign a document. So while this agreement may reduce immediate tensions, there are plenty of potential roadblocks, if you will, down the road, and any of them could derail the process and bring tensions back up quite easily, to be honest.
I see. And you just mentioned Iran's nuclear programs, and a lot of attention is now on the details of this peace deal that's expected to be signed on Friday in Switzerland. And the Trump administration officials have said that averting the risk of Iranian nuclear weapons will be central to any deal. So what might the agreement look like when it comes to Iran's nuclear program?
Well, once again, to be honest, I don't expect the MOU itself to include any substantial or concrete commitments on Iran's nuclear program. In fact, one of the key reasons this agreement was even possible was that both countries decided to postpone the most difficult issues, which are nuclear issues. So that's the reason. I mean, think about it. Initially, the Trump administration pushed for very strong conditions, such as long-term suspension of uranium enrichment on the part of Iranians, possibly for 20 years, or even the transfer of highly enriched uranium stockpiles to the United States in its entirety. Iran, of course, firmly rejected those demands. So what they have done instead is essentially agree to disagree for now. The MOU is likely to contain only a very general commitment on the part of Iranians not to pursue nuclear weapons without specifying how that commitment would be implemented or verified. The real negotiation on the nuclear issue has been pushed into the next phase of negotiation, which again highlights how fragile this current agreement actually is going to be.
I see. And another thing to consider is the conflict in Lebanon, because analysts say Israel and Hezbollah are key to whether this ceasefire deal will last. How do you see the conflict in Lebanon unfolding from here?
And I think this is one of the most critical and also most unpredictable variables going forward. President Trump really went great lengths, in my personal opinion, to persuade Prime Minister Netanyahu and to restrain Israel's military action against Hezbollah. But the key question is, how long, really, how long will Israel actually exercise their restraint? Because from Israel's perspective, Hezbollah remains a direct and immediate security threat. And that perception is not going to change overnight. So if tensions flare up again along the Lebanon border, Israel could resume military operations, and that would inevitably complicate or even undermine the broader U.S. Iran negotiations process. In that sense, the Israel-Hezbollah dynamic is very much one of those thorny issues that could easily destabilize the entire diplomatic effort.
Right, and Pakistan and Qatar have played key roles in brokering this deal amid recent fears that this conflict could reignite. How did these two countries manage to bring about such a dramatic turnaround?
I think Pakistan's role has been quite interesting here. First of all, Pakistan has strategic incentives to act as a mediator. We'll have to understand that because it maintains working relations with both Iran and the United States. And it has a strong interest in preventing further instability in the region, especially given its own security and energy concerns. But I think what really made a difference this time is the role of Pakistan's military leadership, particularly General Asim Munir. Sure, historically, the military has been the key decision-making center in foreign and security policy in Pakistan. But this time, really, General Munir has actively engaged in back-channel diplomacy. Pakistan was able to provide a communication channel that both countries trusted, particularly that the role of Munir was very instrumental here. So in a way, Pakistan's effectiveness came from a combination of strategic positioning, military-led diplomacy, particularly on the part of General Asim Munir, and its ability to talk to both countries without being seen as overly biased towards either side.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how the situation plays out from here. All right, Professor Kim, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
It was good to be here. Thank you.
Korean stocks soared more than 5% after opening on Monday following news of a ceasefire deal between the United States and Iran. The benchmark KOSPI opened at 8,526.12, up 4.95% from the previous session. Gains accelerated beyond 5% shortly after the opening bell, triggering a buy-side sidecar just 6 minutes into trading. The secondary KOSDAQ also opened higher, gaining more than 1%. Market sentiment improved as the deal between Washington and Tehran eased geopolitical concerns and boosted investor sentiment. The $1 exchange rate opened at 1,511.4 Korean won, down 8.4 Korean won from the previous session. Over in Rome, President Lee Jae-myung has attended a special mass for peace and solidarity. He vowed to do all he can to build peace on the Korean peninsula in a special speech. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Peace was an overarching theme during a special mass on Sunday at the Basilica of St. Paul in Rome. The Mass for Peace and Solidarity was celebrated by South Korean Cardinal Lazaro Yuhung-sik and attended by President Lee Jae-myung.
People on the Korean peninsula still live with the scar of division. What more pain could there be?
The message was echoed by President Lee, who said the South Korean government will continue its efforts to prevent accidental clashes between the two Koreas and restore military trust.
정전 상태를 넘어 지속 가능한 평화 체제를 구축하기 위해서도 할 수 있는 모든 것을 다할 생각입니다.
Reiterating the suspension of the propaganda loudspeaker campaign against Pyongyang, President Lee once again made it clear that he does not seek reunification by absorption. He referred to the Inter-Korean Joint Declaration announced in 2000.
오랜 적대와 긴장을 넘어 대화와 협력의 가능성을 전 세계에 알린 역사적인 전환점이었습니다. 저는 지금도 그 희망의 불씨가 살아있다고 확신합니다.
President Lee also thanked the Holy See for its support for peace on the peninsula and promised the country will play a greater role for the world, calling it a shared responsibility.
한반도의 평화가 세계 평화로 이어지고 세계의 연대가 다시 한반도의 평화를 굳건하게 만드는 선순환을 함께 만들어 가기를 희망합니다.
He went on to promise greater support for World Youth Day, a major Catholic camp event set to be held in Seoul next year, during which Pope Leo XIV will visit Korea. The topic is expected to extend into Monday's meeting between President Lee and Pope Leo at the Holy See. Eyes are on whether Lee will officially ask the Pope to pay a visit to the North, amid renewed protests by the North over a recent joint statement by South Korea and the European Union. All this as the South Korean president sends a message of peace and solidarity as the world continues to face conflicts and tensions remain high on the Korean peninsula. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, the Vatican.
U.S. President Donald Trump has held separate calls with the leaders of Russia and Ukraine ahead of the G7 summit, where the war is expected to dominate discussions. Both Moscow and Kyiv say the conversations focused on efforts to move closer to a possible peace settlement. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy each had separate phone calls with U.S. President Donald Trump on Sunday, ahead of this week's G7 summit, where the war in Ukraine is expected to be a major topic. According to the Kremlin, Putin's conversation with Trump lasted just under an hour. Russian officials said Trump stressed the need to end the conflict and expressed a willingness to work with European allies and Ukraine toward a settlement. Moscow also stated that Trump suggested a swift end to the war could lead to a significant improvement in U.S.-Russia relations. Putin, meanwhile, reportedly argued that Ukrainian attacks on Russian civilian infrastructure would not alter the situation on the battlefield, and reiterated his openness to meeting directly with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy. Separately, Zelenskyy described his own call with Trump as productive. In his evening address, the Ukrainian president said he wished Trump a happy 80th birthday and thanked him for the support Washington has provided throughout the war. Zelenskyy said the two discussed steps that could help bring peace closer, and that he updated Trump on the situation along the Eastern Front, where Ukraine's position has recently strengthened.
We have one wish for President Trump, all Ukrainians do, that peace can finally be achieved, so that we can achieve this success together with America, together with all our partners.
The Ukrainian leader added that the two agreed to continue their discussions at the G7 summit, where he is expected to join world leaders later this week, as efforts to end the war remain high on the international agenda. 이승재, Arirang News.
And South Korea's defense minister says a target date for regaining wartime operational control from the United States could be proposed to the leaders of both countries by the end of this year. Defense Minister An Kyu-baek told Korean broadcaster KBS on Sunday that discussions on South Korea's full operational capability assessment will take place at the Allied Security Consultative Meeting in November, after which a timeline proposal could be submitted to the two presidents. The Lee Jae-myung administration hopes to complete the transfer before E's term ends in 2030. An acknowledged there may be differences between Seoul and Washington on the timing, but said close consultations are underway. Interest in learning Korean is increasingly growing across Vietnam. For many young people, Korean proficiency has become a valuable credential for university admissions and job opportunities. Our Kim Seo-young reports.
Nervous test takers check which room they were assigned to before heading inside. This is the first test of proficiency in Korean, or TOPIK, held in Vietnam this year. Last year, more than 85,000 people in Vietnam took the test. That was the largest number of test takers anywhere in the world. Korean culture may have sparked the interest, but job opportunities are now giving more Vietnamese a practical reason to study the language.
This test gives employers an objective measure of my Korean ability, and it will help me find a better job.
The boom is also being fueled by growing economic ties between South Korea and Vietnam. As more Korean companies expand into Vietnam, demand for workers who can speak Korean has grown rapidly. Vietnam's education authorities are also moving in step. After choosing Korean as one of the most important foreign languages in 2021, the country now has about 35,000 students learning Korean at roughly 80 universities and 160 high schools. The momentum is expected to pick up even more. Starting this year, TOPIK scores can be officially recognized as scores in Vietnam's high school graduation exam.
Students who earn level 3 on the test or higher can be exempt from the foreign language test of the graduation exam.
But as the number of test takers grows, cheating is becoming a rising concern. Last year, 554 cheating cases were reported nationwide, the highest on record. As the number of test takers continues to grow, stronger safeguards will be needed to ensure the exam remains fair and credible. Kim Seo-young, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. The U.S. government has ordered AI company Anthropic to shut off all foreign access to its most powerful models, including Mythos, after researchers discovered a way to bypass the system's safety guardrails. In an unprecedented move, the Commerce Department directed Anthropic to suspend access to its Fable 5 and Mythos 5 models for any foreign nationals anywhere in the world. Anthropic cut off all customers globally to ensure compliance, but said it disagreed that a narrow jailbreak should trigger the recall. Amazon researchers had conducted the jailbreak research that revealed the vulnerability and were in contact with the U.S. government before the order was issued. President Trump's AI advisor David Sachs said the administration wants Anthropic to fix the vulnerability as soon as possible so access can be restored. Swiss voters have rejected a proposal to cap the country's population at 10 million. In a referendum on Sunday, 55% voted against the measure in a result that relieved businesses and preserved the country's free movement agreement with the European Union. The right-wing Swiss People's Party had championed the cap, arguing that rapid population growth was straining public services and pushing up rents. Switzerland's population currently stands at 9.1 million and is projected to reach 10 million by the early 2040s, with foreigners making up nearly 28% of residents. Business groups warned a yes vote would have limited access to foreign workers and damaged the economy. In the Philippines, the death toll from last week's magnitude 7.8 earthquake in the southern Philippines has risen to at least 61, with 40 people still missing. Scientists also confirmed the tremor had raised the seabed by up to 2 meters, exposing coral reefs and killing marine life across a wide stretch of coastline. The geological phenomenon known as coastal uplift extended shorelines by as much as 200 meters in some areas of Sarangani and Davao Occidental provinces. Residents initially reported the changes out of concern they might be harmed by fumes from decaying sea life. In the U.S., a plane crash in Butler, Missouri on Sunday killed 11 skydivers and the pilot. According to a local official, the plane failed to gain altitude shortly after takeoff, stalled, and hit the ground nose first before bursting into flames, with reports saying that family members of some of the victims were watching. Federal Aviation Administration officials and a National Transportation Safety Board team responded to the scene.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with the latest weather updates. We need to dress a little lighter this week as summer-like heat continues to build across the country. And under mostly sunny skies, temperatures will rise quickly today with plenty of sunshine. That said, UV levels will be very high in most parts of the country this afternoon, so sun safety is a must during the day. However, not everyone will stay completely dry today. Between this afternoon and early evening, passing rain is in the forecast for Jeollado Province and parts of Gangwon-do Province with 5 to 10 millimeters expected. And this afternoon, except for the East Coast regions where temperatures will stay in the low 20s, the rest of the country will see highs in the 30s. Seoul will be getting up to sizzling 32 degrees Celsius. Daejeon and Gwangju both will make it to 31 degrees. Daegu will be at 30 degrees Celsius. But at least the humidity will be relatively low, so please look for some shade. Summer is definitely making its presence felt across the Korean peninsula, and the hot weather should continue throughout the week, with daytime highs hovering above 30 degrees Celsius in many parts of Korea under mostly sunny skies.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.